Welcome back, everybody. It's Zach here, bringing us another fantasy football video. This one I'm going to go through some sell candidates ahead of week 12. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to split this up into sort of two parts. We're going to go quarterback, running back, receiver, and tight end, and I'm going to cover my top trade target, whether you're in one of two spots. So the first four players we'll go over will be guys I'd be looking to move off of if you just really need to win the next 4 week or next 3 weeks. We got weeks 12, 13, and 14. Got to really lock in, win these three games to get into the playoffs. At least for a lot of us, very few of us are already sitting at 9-2 and just guaranteed to make the playoffs. So these weeks are relatively important for everybody. Even if you're at 9-2, right, you're still probably fighting for a bye if your league has those. So these next 3 weeks are super important, and those four guys will be guys that I don't think are going to be super useful for you in those 3 weeks. And then the second set of players will be one player at each position that I just don't think is going to be super useful for you guys in the playoffs. So those are guys, if you are in that spot where you're 9-2, 10-1, you got to buy locked down. Maybe look to move off of those guys because they're not necessarily going to be the most useful assets for you once you make the playoffs. So, as always, if you have any specific trade questions, let me know in the comments below. I went over my trade targets, so players I'd be looking to trade for. Very similar format to this video. That video came out this morning as well, so go check that one out if you guys want to. And again, as always, any questions, let me know in the comments below. Let's get into it, guys. So we'll start things off with Dak Prescott. Actually, a pretty good sell high candidate right now, coming off of a monster performance, and it was just relatively predictable, right? We saw them take advantage of a horrendous defense in Las Vegas, and really we haven't seen the Cowboys do a whole lot against good defenses so far this season. Just think back, they had their bye 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks before that, you got the Cardinals and the Broncos. Cardinals aren't even a good defense, and they held this team down. Like, we have not seen this team put up really any ceiling outcomes except against horrendous teams, so like the Raiders, like the Giants. Like, unless they've been playing bottom five defenses, they haven't really gone out there and done a whole lot on offense. I understand that they're a good offense, but they just haven't really put it all together and impressed me enough to the point where I want to believe they're going to be really good long term. On top of that, the next 2 weeks are really horrible. You get Kansas City and Philadelphia each of the next 2 weeks. I can't really imagine that Dak goes out there and is a top 10 option in either of those matchups. We've seen Philadelphia shut down the Packers and the Lions over the last 2 weeks. Those are two legitimately good offenses. I'd venture to say that there's no reason you could justify saying that the Cowboys are in a whole other tier above those teams, right? So it would be unreasonable to expect Dak to go out there and just be a top 10 guy this week. Kansas City, again, a really good defense, a team that's going to have to probably win out to make the playoffs. It's not like you're going to catch Kansas City sleeping any week here. I think if you can sell Dak for a reliable starter, I would do that because I don't think Dak's a top 10 guy over the next 3 weeks. If you do need to win each of the next 3 games, I just don't think Dak's really going to be a guy to help you do that. And not to mention, it's tough to really know because they play the Raiders, but their defense might have improved with the additions. At least Quinnen Williams is clearly going to be somewhat of a difference maker here. If the defense improves, it's actually bad for the offense because you saw the Bengals last year, the Cowboys earlier on this year. Bad defenses are good for offense in fantasy, so that's just another negative there. I'm not exactly excited about Dak for the rest of the season. Staying in the NFC East here, we've got Tyrone Tracy as my number one sell candidate if you need to win over the next 3 weeks. The thing is with Tracy, I actually think he's a pretty good player. The problem is the situation just really doesn't lend itself towards him really producing a lot of points. He's probably going to be effectively useless over the next 3 weeks. He has the worst strength of schedule for a running back over weeks 12 through 14, with Detroit, phenomenal run defense, New England, an even better run defense, and then a bye, right? So for 3 straight matchups, you really can't use Tyrone Tracy. Also, clearly has no touchdown upside. The goal line role is very clearly Devin Singletary's, so the only way Tracy's going to score is if he scores from like 10 yards out. I just don't love that, right? So Tracy, I think you might be able to get like running back 2 value for him because he's looked good enough. He's done okay over the last couple of weeks, but there's just no way I want to start him over any of the next 3 weeks. And if you do need to win these 3 games, he's not going to help you do that. So look to move off him if you can. This one stinks, but Drake London is obviously a sell candidate if you're in a spot where you need to win over the next couple of weeks. Of course, it sucks selling a guy that's hurt, right? You're selling low. You're not selling him at peak value. Like if you'd sold him just 7 days ago, you'd have obviously gotten a haul for him, but I wouldn't have been telling you to sell him 7 days ago, right? So that's just sort of how things go. The injury is really bad luck. You had him get banged up, and Michael Penix now down for the season with another ACL tear. I just really can't imagine a world where Drake London comes out and puts up anywhere near the level of production he was doing for us earlier. He's got the 4th worst strength of schedule over the next 3 games, so New Orleans, the Jets, and the Seahawks. Granted, I'll give it that those teams are not necessarily great defenses by any means. Like the Jets and the Saints are just so bad for opposing pass catchers because teams beat them so easily they don't have to throw the ball. And the Falcons are bad enough. That's maybe not the case, but to be honest, the Falcons should still win those games really handily. Again, you have the Michael Penix injury. Probably a quarterback downgrade. Not that I just think Penix was playing really well, but Kirk Cousins has not looked very good so far this season. It's just tough for me. It'd be tough for me to see Drake London coming out there and really dominating the way he was with Penix. And I'm just always scared of players that are hurt on bad teams at the end of the season. We see it happen all the time. You have a player get banged up, and there's just no reason for that team to get that guy to suit up, no reason to rush him back. They would obviously play it 100% close to the vest. That you're going to make sure that Drake London is absolutely 110% before you put him back out on there on the field. And let's say they lose their next two games. Even if they win the next two, right? Like they're out of it. They're 3-7 right now. There's no real shot at the Falcons making the playoffs. There's nothing for them to play for. You got Michael Penix tearing his ACL. This team is looking at next year without a first round pick, by the way. So Falcons are in a little bit of trouble, but it makes a whole lot of sense for the Falcons to consider shutting him down if this turns into more than just like a 1 week injury for Drake London. Whenever I hear week to week, it typically means that you're for sure missing that 1 week, and you generally end up missing 2 or 3. I just don't like it. I think there's a real chance that we end up not seeing Drake London really play meaningful snaps the entire rest of the season, and I do still think you can get a pretty decent piece for him. So if you can get a wide receiver 2 for London, I would do that. I would trade him for like Tet McMillan right now. I think you could get that done. That's the kind of trade that I think people might look at. Like Rome Odunze, I would love to trade for. Like I think you could maybe get that trade done. And I think it's just a slam dunk because I think you're probably passing off a landmine there and a player that's just not going to do a whole lot the rest of the way. And the tight end that I've been looking to sell right now if I need to win the next 3 games, Brock Bowers. That obviously sucks because Brock Bowers has been phenomenal when healthy. Granted, he's really only had 2 good games this season. He's played 7 now, so you're looking at a guy who's honestly not had a very good hit rate so far this season. I get it that over the first few weeks after his injury, he was playing hurt. I'm going to give him a pass for that, but the reality is that the Raiders suck. Geno Smith has played absolutely horrible football. They have no other pass catchers to really command targets or coverage, so Brock Bowers is just being focused on entirely by defenses at all times, and it makes sense, right? Because you're not going to get beat by Tyler Lockett or anything. So that sucks. And you pair that with the fact that the schedule over the next 3 weeks is awful. You get Cleveland, maybe the best defense in the NFL next week. You get the Chargers, we know they're an elite defense, and you get the Broncos, another elite defense. So you have a crappy quarterback with no weapons outside of Brock Bowers going up against 3 really good defenses. I think they're all going to have a really easy time just focusing in on Bowers. You're praying that you just get garbage time over the fourth quarter where, they're down 21, teams back off, let Bowers catch 4 or 5 passes on one drive near the end of the game, and maybe that does it for you, but even if he does well enough for you to get you into the playoffs, you start the playoffs off with Philadelphia and Houston, 2 more phenomenal defenses. Week 17 is not horrible, but you're not going to get there with Brock Bowers, I don't think. So I think you got to sell high right now. He's obviously not coming off of a nuke or anything like that, but I don't really see Bowers going out there and being the reason you win any games going forward. And I would take Tyler Warren, I would take Trey McBride, I would take George Kittle over him rest of the season. Those are easy. I think you could easily sell Bowers for Kittle plus, and even you could just downgrade to a streamer, go get Jawan Johnson, and just make it work, right? So I think there's just better options. I think you'd easily get a low end wide receiver 1, get a serviceable backup there. Let's face it too, a lot of us that have Bowers, we have a second tight end because we were in a spot where we had to find somebody else earlier on. I think you can do okay without him, and I just don't think he's going to be a whole lot better than those replacement level guys over the next several weeks. So now we're moving on to players I'd be looking to move off of if I feel really good about my playoff odds. These are players that really just stand out as matchups that aren't going to be good during the fantasy playoffs. And I mentioned Patrick Mahomes in this video last week. Same thing stands, right? So you got Houston in week 14. So, that's your playoff clinching week. It's not a playoff game, but obviously we know that's a bad matchup. You get the Chargers, great defense. The Titans, horrible team, so you're just going to win that game so easily that you don't need to score. And then the Broncos, another great defense that we just saw shut Patrick Mahomes down. And that's your championship matchup, right? So this is not exactly setting up for Patrick Mahomes to go out there and be the reason you win your league. I don't know that any of those 4 games are going to be high scoring. Like I said, the only decent matchup there is the Tennessee Titans. But again, the Titans are so bad that you can score 14 points and just know you're going to win. So the Chiefs will probably win that game 21, 24-6. And if you don't get those touchdowns early in the game, it's just not going to happen in the second half. So there's no real ceiling outcome here for Mahomes. The only one of those that I could maybe see turning into a shootout is that Chargers game because their defense has been a little bit hit or miss. But with the Chiefs defense being good, all of the opposing defenses being good, and none of the offenses really being good enough that I would expect them to get out to an early lead against Mahomes, I just don't think it's really going to work out here. I think that obviously Mahomes has been phenomenal this season, but I just don't think he's anywhere near a top 5 quarterback over the last 4 weeks. And no matter how good he was during the regular season, if you get to those last 3 weeks and he doesn't do anything for you, you aren't winning the championship. So I would look elsewhere if I can. This one's hard, but Breece Hall, I think, is a player I would be looking to move off of if I feel really good about my playoff odds. He's got the second worst strength of schedule for a running back over the course of the playoffs. And on top of that, yeah, I get it, it's narrative based, but like, what is Breece Hall playing for right now? Okay, we know he's not going to be a Jet next season. He's already proven that he's talented. So all he's looking for now is putting enough on film that we know he's going to get an elite contract next year, go be a workhorse somewhere else, and I think at this point we know that's going to happen. I don't know where it's going to be, but Breece is not going to be a Jet in 2026. He's going to get paid a good amount of money, and the only thing he gains by playing at this point is pride and love of the game. He's putting himself at injury risk if he goes out there and tears an ACL or has some sort of significant injury. It would obviously be really detrimental to a player who has never been paid. Right, he was a second round pick in the NFL draft, so he wasn't like a he wasn't being paid first round of money. He hasn't had like a huge payout just yet. This contract coming up is incredibly important to him. I would not be shocked at all if 4 weeks from now the Jets are they're probably not going to win another game, to be honest, right? So they're playing for the number one overall pick. With that being said, you could easily get to a spot where it's like, hey, Braylon Allen comes back from his injury, and there's like, hey, let's see what we've got in Braylon Allen, Isaiah Davis, and Breece Hall's got a sore hamstring or something, right? And Breece Hall is obviously not motivated to play. The Jets are okay to see what they have going forward so they can make decisions in the offseason. It would make a lot of sense for both sides just to sit Breece Hall down and see what else they've got. I know sometimes you get the narrative with these sort of situations where, the team's just going to run him into the ground because they don't need him the next season. That's more typical of teams that are actually playing for something. We see it happen all the time where teams that are tanking will sort of conveniently not play their best players near the end of the year. Like, the Browns didn't play Jameis Winston at the end of last season, not because they thought they were better off with the backup quarterbacks they had, but because they just didn't want Jameis Winston to accidentally win them a game. That sort of stuff happens all the time, right? And Breece Hall's good enough; he could hit a few touchdown runs, and accidentally win the Jets a game. That would be really detrimental to their future, right? So it just doesn't make sense for Breece Hall to play a whole lot down the stretch. Even if he plays over those games, like I mentioned, the schedule's horrendous. The Jets have no touchdown upside. I don't know who's going to play quarterback week to week. It's Tyrod Taylor this week. You just hate to see that. So I don't really want anything to do with Breece Hall. He's probably like a low-end running back 2 for me. He's obviously got more upside than that, but I think you can get a legit running back 2 for him, maybe even a little bit better, and I would just look to get out of that situation if I can. This one's hard too, but Emeka Egbuka is a guy that I would at least consider moving off of. I just want to point out that he's got the second worst strength of schedule for a wide receiver during the fantasy playoffs. I mentioned him on this video last week as well, and we saw last week he went out there and just didn't exactly have a high-end performance in a game where the Bills gave up a ton of points to the Bucs. So there are outcomes where Emeka Egbuka is just not incredibly important to the offense, and they still win games or put up a lot of points. I know they lost last week, but they put up over 30 points. The offense did enough, and they did it without him. You've also got Bucky Irving and Chris Godwin certainly going to be back by the playoffs. There's potential that they're even back this week. It's even possible that by the playoffs we get Mike Evans back. There's a real chance that there's just so many more mouths to feed in this offense by the time we get to the playoffs that you look at Egbuka as a guy who's just no longer as important to the offense. Then you pair that with some pretty tough matchups here, right? So you get Atlanta. At that point in the season, Atlanta's going to be cooked, right? The season's over for them already. You get there, they're not going to be a competitive team. The Bucs will win that one super easily. The Panthers, maybe you get a sneaky shootout there, so that's what you're praying for. We've seen that before between these two teams. Same thing with the Falcons, right? I think Cousins had a 500-yard game against them last year. So that's the bull case, is that all three of these bad teams go out there and just somehow match the Bucs on offense and force the Bucs to score. But the Bucs defense is good enough to hold all three of these opposing teams down. If that happens, you're going to be looking at a Bucs team that can probably just run the ball really effectively and win these games. And you'll need Egbuka to hit on a big play, and it's just tough. I think Egbuka is clearly really talented. He's probably like a mid-tier wide receiver 2 over the playoffs, and I think if you can go get like wide receiver 1 value, because I think people still value him like that, I would consider doing it. I think it's worth taking a look and at least seeing what you can do there. And the last player I'll mention here is another tight end that I wouldn't be looking to play in the fantasy playoffs. It's Oronde Gadsden. Again, this is another guy, and this is the problem as we get closer and closer to the end of the season. These trade candidates become relatively consistent here. But Oronde Gadsden, again, is a guy that I'd be looking to move off of. Clearly talented, right? So you've obviously got spike week potential, but the schedule is just not exciting at all when we get to the playoffs. You get Kansas City in week 15, Dallas in week 16, that's great, and then Houston in week 17. So for 2 of the 3 weeks in the fantasy playoffs, I don't think you really want to consider using Oronde Gadsden. On top of that, you're going to get Amari and Hampton back at some point here, so that's just going to make this team potentially a little bit more run heavy. Just gives them one more option in the offense that isn't Oronde Gadsden. And look, I love the talent here, but just there's so many mouths to feed. This Chargers offense has not been good over the last several weeks. It makes it tough to know that you're going to get production, because at least early on in the season we saw this Chargers team putting up 20, 30 points every single week, and we just knew that, okay, maybe one of Gadsden, Keenan, Ladd, or Johnson just doesn't come through, but now it's like 3 of them don't come through and only 1 does. So I think better days are still ahead for the Chargers offense, but these matchups don't get me excited. Houston, especially in the championship matchup, like I just can't see that game being high scoring at all. The Chargers defense is too good to give up a lot of points to Houston, and Houston's defense is way too good to give up a lot of points in any matchup. So you really want to look at that, right? Like Gadsden's obviously a good player. I understand that you're probably looking at him as better than those like replacement waiver options, but like go back to last season, like Chigakonkwo had like 2 straight weeks where he was getting 20 points in the fantasy playoffs. I think you can generally get by, especially as you get later into the year, which we are, where you can really look at just opposing schedules and just find a good streaming option at tight end. And if you're in this tier at Gadsden, if you don't have like Kittle, Warren, McBride, maybe you can throw Bowers in there, but I'm worried about him. If you don't have one of those guys, I guess maybe Kelsey with how involved he's been lately, but if you don't have one of just those like week in, week out amazing plays, I think it makes some level of sense just to move off of Gadsden if you can, get a legit starter, and then just stream in position, because I'm not super stoked about what we're going to get the rest of the way, although I do think his future is very bright. So that'll do it for trade candidates this week. I went over buy lows or trade for candidates earlier today, and then the sell candidates came out right now, obviously. So highly recommend you guys go watch the trade for candidate video if you guys haven't already. And again, if you have any specific trade questions, just let me know in the comments below. I love seeing what you guys are doing there. I think it's one of the wisest things that you can do is make these trades that are educated, forward-thinking, looking at what your schedule is going to be for the playoffs, and make sure that you're getting things as locked in as possible, because a lot of the managers just don't do that. It gives you a great opportunity to sort of get a leg up on everybody, and it really will help you out over the course of the season, and especially over the course of the playoffs if you're thinking a couple weeks ahead like this. So good luck there. Go make some trades, get your lineup set for the rest of the season. Like I said, any specific questions, let me know in the comments. Next video will be starts and sits, so we'll start going over the matchups this week, help you guys get your lineup set. So make sure you are subscribed to the channel, that way you guys don't miss that. Give this video a thumbs up if it helped you out at all, and I will catch you guys with the next one. Peace, guys. Thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, check out these other videos here if you haven't. If you want more content, please feel free to follow me on Twitter at RealSteelFFB. I'll be more active on there as the season goes on. Thanks. Catch you later.